Okay, so this is a part two, I guess, to the video about I made about Obsession about a couple weeks ago. I really wanted to talk a little bit more about my whole theories, some stuff I liked, a little bit of character analysis, and a little bit more stuff about what I really liked about the film. But I'll get right into it. All right. So first of all, I really like the atmosphere and the visuals that they added. I think what I really like most of all is that I'm going to talk a lot about Lake Mungo, just to let you guys know. But Lake Mungo, I really think that the soundtrack for Obsession reminded me a lot about Lake Mungo, specifically the end of the series where, well, seriously, specifically the end of the movie where it had like the sound design for the end. If you listen to it, it's really good. But the soundtrack specifically for Obsession reminded me of like this haunted train that's coming in, and like where it's like this all corners of like this dread that you feel coming from somewhere that you can't really like feel, but it's like bad. And I think I really like most of all is like the visual aspect, specifically how they made her face look more like a dark void. It's kind of like how when you were a kid and you'd see like dark corners of like rooms, and you think like, oh my gosh, this is like so scary. Like it feels like something scary is like popping out at you. And I think that's kind of what like Curry Barker was like going for, because it felt like her face looked so scary, but it like because it looked like a boy, but it also looked like she was gonna like pop out and do stuff. Like you just didn't know what to expect. Especially the moving backwards scene, which I really wanted to talk about, because like that scene where Bear and Nikki were talking, and then like Nikki just started moving backwards out of nowhere, or like when Nikki was like moving so weird while she was like watching Bear sleep. And it reminded me a lot of about like It Chapter 2, where Beth visits her old house that she used to live in, and like you see the old lady that's like the clown pretending to be the old lady, but then you also see the old lady that's like naked in the background like walking. If you watch It Chapter 2, you'll, or if you've seen it, or if you go watch it now, you'll probably understand where I'm coming from. But like, or the scene in Hereditary, and I know the actor said that she watched Hereditary to like prepare for the role, but like when the mom was like in the corner watching like her son sleep, and then when she gets possessed by the spirit, like by the demon, and she's like walking weird, that's kind of like what it reminded me of. But also, I really wanted to go into character analysis of Nikki. I think a lot of people were talking about like how Nikki was acting like a cat, and I can kind of hear it too. Like when she screams, it has like this like there's like a different type of like pitch octave where it sounds like a deep like morale, kind of like how cats act when they're angry and they're like their ears are back and they're like more of like suspicious of like all of like stuff that's going on, or when they're like trying to like defend themselves. It kind of sounded a little bit like that. I think for the most part of like where Nikki was, like a lot of people were describing it as like the sunken place, like in Get Out, where Chris was like put into like hypnosis, and when he finds out that what would happen to him, but luckily he escapes and fine. But where the guy was starting to talk about like, oh yeah, so like I will be controlling your body and like of course like the motor functions, but you will be living as a passenger in the sunken place. And I think it kind of also reminded me of like Lake Mungo, where Alice Palmer died, but like her, we don't know like specifically where she is. Uh, like she could probably be at like that lake, like, but at the end of the movie we see Alice Palmer at this Lake Mungo hellscape kind of area. uh it's the way how like I remember the theorizer said it was something like that, but like where she's like somewhere, but like we don't know where it is. Like we, it could be like a different plane of existence, but we're assuming that she was like somewhere because like even when Bear was on the phone with the operator and he was talking about like, oh yeah, well, do you want to talk to her? And Bear was like, what? And like you hear Nikki screaming in the background, so it's obvious that she's like somewhere because like how else were we able to like get her on the phone? And it wasn't like some type of hallucination. Like we all heard it. I also don't think Nikki is aware of time passing. I'm like 100% sure like she has no idea like how long or how much time has passed. And I think one of the prime examples was that the monologue that I read and I reread before, but like reading it, you it's like this tale about this really dark, twisted version of like of Hansel and Gretel, and it's about how like how Nikki sees Bear as a brother to her. So it's obvious that we know, like, okay, Nikki was like before the wish. We know that Nikki still technically saw Bear as a brother, and we can still like clearly kind of see all that happening. And I think Wish Nikki kind of like used that and like hijacked it, but we'll get more into that with like the plot holes and stuff. Well, like the plot points. But I also read the poem again, and I think like Nikki might have also like did more than just like cut off Bear's hair. Cause like as I was reading the poem specifically, I was like, wait, like what else? Like it kind of makes me think like maybe Nikki like was like probably like licking him or something while he was sleeping. I don't know. Like there was maybe I'm reading a little ahead into things, but I think she might have did something else too. Um. So, and I'm gonna talk a little bit about plot theories. The theories on the wish, I think it really has like something to do with like manifestation rules where like you need to be like extremely specific, like you can't be vague about stuff like that. And in this case he was kind of vague but also kind of specific at the same time cuz but like the wish in itself, like, it was like the wish in itself was like cursed or whatnot, but also there are unintended consequences. And like the second rule is that obviously like when the genie says I can't make people fall in love. That's like I think Bear making that wish is like a prime example of why you don't wish that. Um I also thought about like how quickly Nikki was able to like find Bear and Sarah at the park. I think this is like a my girlfriend situation in like the webtoon comic. I don't know if you guys read it, but I think I might go into depth talk about it a little more. But specifically where alien parasites were invading people's brains and like multiplying and whatnot. And in the comic, you can see like how the aliens they like are able to like hijack their brains, but they're able to figure out like who they are, what they are, how old they were, or how old they are, what they do for school, all that stuff. Um, I don't know, but thinking about where will Nikki go next, I think she would probably go to a mental institution or jail. Probably jail, but I think maybe she could plead insanity, but I think there's like a probably like a legal thing that you have to like run through. But it can be a little bit tricky because she doesn't have any pre-existing mental disorders. But I don't know. Maybe a lawyer might know about the situation. Maybe Law might know. I don't know. But I also had a small thought about the fact that the guy who said, "Nah, I already made my wish," to Bear when he was trying to like find somebody else who can like fix the wish that Bear made. I think he made a wish to be the owner of the spiritual sword. I don't know why. I just thought about it. Maybe other people had like thought about that too, but I think. also the One Wish Willow has the same effect on people as in the movie Weapons. Like how when Aunt Gladys like breaks the magic stick that she had that controlled people, like in the first few hours, like in the movie, like well, in the first few hours when Alex gets home from school, his parents speak to him, but like they mimic like what's left of him. Just like in when Bear breaks the One Wish Lolo, you can see like how Wish Nikki was like trying to communicate with Bear when she was like, "Oh, well, cause my cat died," and then Bear's like, "What?" And then she's like, "Oh no, I mean, your cat died. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, that whole entire thing, like it just it's kind of like how Weapons was, where like you can kind of see like the last bits of like how the parents kind of acted towards Alex, because you can see like, oh yeah, like the parents were still there, but like they were slowly like going away. And I think the new Nikki, when the new Nikki relinquished control, I'm assuming that Nikki ended up going to like this like pocket dimension somewhere, because like how else were we able to hear her on the phone? But like we maybe I don't know, but maybe like she's like in a jar somewhere. Maybe like Wish Nikki was like in a jar somewhere or something, or like in like a containment thing, like somewhere. Like she had to have gone somewhere. But anyways, I also noticed that when Bear broke the One Wish Low at night, Nikki was like way more powerful and possessive at night versus like when she's like awake. Even though we like see her reaching to more of like deranged power, specifically when like day breaks, kind of. But I did a little bit more research and I learned that like the Willow Tree was like a very powerful witchcraft tool, specifically because of his powers were typed like water. And if you know anything about astrology or witchcraft, water and the moon is like very, very powerful. And theoretically, you could say that the entity or like Bear's wishes was like at night was like super powerful. And also, I wanted to talk a little bit about some miscellaneous stuff. I also heard that director Curry Barker said that there might be a release of the director's cut, and I really hope they do a release of the director's cut, because I don't even care if it costs like $100. I hope they make it, and I will like pay like every cent I have just so I can watch it. But yeah, I promised I would do another video on it, and I'm glad I did. It took me a little bit longer but than expected, but I'm glad I did. And yeah, if you guys want to talk a little bit more, I really want to talk more, but I really wanted to make sure I get my piece down because I've been meaning to like make the second video for the longest time. All right, well, bye. We'll see you guys in the next one.